Hi, time for another episode of the Thought Project. Jess here, and today's show I'm going to be ending it with singing the old wedding song by Shania Twain, originally performed by Shania Twain, called From This Moment On. It was really popular, beauty song at weddings in the late 90s, early 2000s, back when the U.S. had a much larger wedding culture and economy, which really doesn't today. That's probably a good thing. But anyways, I'm going to be performing at the show, so I hope you stay around for the whole thing. And we're going to start out with the song Kashmir by Led Zeppelin today. Okay, so let's get on to the show today. I hope you enjoyed that opener today. It's a little less of me trying to do choreographed dancing and a little more just kind of enjoying a song and sort of opening up. I'm going to try to keep it moving. There was some pretty major news that came out yesterday from the Treasury, U.S. Department of Treasury. Basically, they issued sanctions against Russian security operatives from 2020 for the poisoning of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. And the Treasury noted 4 actors in the attempt. It happened to Alexei before he flew to Moscow after campaigns in Tasks and Novosibirsk. I can't pronounce some of these places. But the point is that at least he was in Novosibirsk. I can announce that. And before he went to Moscow. Basically, he was out campaigning in other parts of the country before returning to Moscow and was poisoned. 2 weeks ago, the Russian National Court sentenced Navalny to an additional 19 years in prison on extremism charges. And supposedly he has 2 other terms that he's supposed to be serving for embezzlement in Russia. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, I looked at a couple different articles, and one was trying to say he was only serving 2 terms. I don't understand how he's out campaigning against Putin in other parts of Russia. I could look up the name of one of the places he was actually campaigning in just to see what they're talking about. But because I can't pronounce some of this stuff, like I'm not Russian, so the names just don't even look right to me. But what are you gonna do? Tomsk, T-O-M-S-K. So I guess he was in Tomsk, and then also, the other place was at Novosibirsk. Whatever. Anyways, so I think there's some Russian information or obfuscation coming out here trying to say he's already serving previous terms for embezzlement or fraud or something because he has been an advocator against Putin and his regime. And the information was released by Brian E. Nelson, the Undersecretary of the Treasury of Terrorism and Financial Intelligence for the U.S. Department of Treasury. Now, let's note here that I'm going to try to say these names. They did release the names of the actual agents who poisoned him working for the national security organizations of Russia, which my understanding is actually the FSB KGB. So, but maybe they mean some other organization, military group related to the Russian government. Anyway, so it's Alexei Alexandrovich, Alexandrov, Konstantin Otsev, Konstantin Kadri Otsev, Ivan Vladimirovich Osipov, and Vladimir Alexandrovich Panev. Did I get any of those right? These names are ridiculous. Alexei Alexandrovich Alexandrov, Konstantin Kudry Otsev, Ivan Vladimirovich Osipov, Vladimirovich Osipov, and Vladimir Alexandrovich Poyev. And it's important to note that they were done on the Act of 2012, which was named after Sergei Magnitsky Rule of Law Accountability Act of 2012. So that's the law in the U.S. that they issued the sanctions against them under, which would also probably strengthen U.S. economics considerably, considering that there's been a huge amount of activity with U.S. operatives and even citizens being poisoned and attacked by people supporting Russian national intelligence. And if you still haven't gotten the point of this show, that I'm actually talking about some of the mafia and their operations in the U.S. and their poisoning and the attacks on U.S. citizens and theft and rape and murder and stealing kids and all of it to support their operations, which I hope you should have gotten by now. That's an actual issue in the U.S. So it's important to understand that these people actually can be sanctioned. Like I said, you can do things a lot of different ways. And everything doesn't have to go the way the Russians and Iranians have been pushing to in the U.S. by trying to drag everybody to court. By the way, it's one of their favorite things. Why they do that? Because they like to pay off judges, set things up. Meanwhile, the U.S. has gone through a huge process this past year and really sped up in recent months on cracking down on prosecutors who don't do their jobs. Notably, and this is all good news for economics, because what supports the U.S. economically is the lack of support for countries that are so hostile to the U.S. economically and steal so much from us. They're so openly hostile and threatening and steal money, steal goods. Look at what happened to my life. Look how much has been stolen from myself and my family. My parents are dead, but a lot of money been stolen by these people. And at least sanctions can be done. And it's important to kind of go through that process, because what the U.S. is at economically right now is that we don't have continued inflation on food. At least that's staying in place. Hiring is down. And it kind of looks like, China and Russia's economies have crashed finally. And so we actually have some breathing room for once to live our lives, and maybe the rest of the world as well, which is important. That's a big deal. So, and I want to note that the Undersecretary released a statement that he said the assassination attempt against Navalny in 2020 represents the Kremlin's contempt for human rights, and we will continue to use the authority at our disposal to hold the Kremlin's would-be executioners to account. They hold the Kremlin's willing would-be executioners to account. So Putin really doesn't get to just go bouncing around the world, and he does bounce, attacking people. So, it's a big deal. It's a big deal that we felt confident enough to do that as a country. So, and I need to change topics here. We got to go into health care issues, because this does affect the economy as well. You noticed earlier in the week I talked about COVID coming back, resurging during the warmer months. There's been some really weird, the air strain found in, Scandinavia and then also Israel. And well, the WHO did come out this morning and say that they issued a call to concern on it, that the new COVID variant Eris is spreading in the U.S. And the U.S. has the WHO has noted that there are 30 mutations in the strain, and it now has, they're saying 36 spikes. So in an update, and compared to the Omicron subvariant, which is not spreading as quickly anymore, and they called it a BA 7.86 mutation. Potential impact is presently unknown, and is going on. They're asking for more surveillance and assessment, and they're reminding people not to panic, but to still get vaccinated. So that's kind of all I could come up with, even myself. It's like, well, I guess we're all gonna start getting vaccinated again. But I just, for COVID, whatever this new version is, let us know when you have the next model of, vaccination available, because I get vaccinated. So, and I want to swing back though to now. So we're gonna, because I'm working my way down topics of importance, because you need to know about the COVID thing, because that kind of does affect economics. It affects people's work schedules and their lives. Allergies are bothering me. Sorry, and it can be really, you think it doesn't affect economics and labor, and it does more than you'd expect. So just be aware of that. That's going around. I think, for me, I've had 5 different variations of it, and some of the worst. And I mean, I had the Moo variant. Like, I've had some really weird ones, and I just kind of get through it. And that's how it goes for people that take care of themselves. But you remember, I'm somebody that, I work out, I watch what I eat, I take vitamins, I take electrolyte supplements, I do all the stuff you're supposed to do to be healthy. I'm very big on hand sanitizer. I really don't like people who are so crazy. They don't like hand sanitizer or using water and soap to wash their hands. Remember to sneeze like this. So you should sneeze in public, go like this if you don't have a tissue. Don't put your hand on your nose. It's just really basic stuff. I only have associates in the sciences, so I can talk about it a little bit as an educator, but I don't have a license other than what I did as a nurse's aide. And I just want you to know I'm passing along like really basic information with my little associate's degree in the sciences and then my long background in research. But that's what's up on that. So swinging back, though, we need to talk for a second. Florida also announced yesterday that they were going to suspend. Governor DeSantis decided to suspend Orlando State Attorney Monique H. Worrell. She is suspended because, and it was Newsweek that noted. Well, anyways, now I wouldn't say Newsweek actually alone. I saw this in several, it was all over. It was even on like Sky News in Australia and all over the place, and it was carried in the U.S. as well. So don't forget the Australians look at a lot of our news, and sometimes they're ahead of it more than we are. But, so it was searched out through several different, what do you want to call it, media outlets, publications as well, because some were like literally just all video feeds and some were actual articles, but it's a big deal. And they covered it live. They announced it live from Florida. So the point is that she was actually just sitting back and letting people get shot and killed. And she was letting some of the kind of stuff that happened to my mom happen. And the governor stepped in and said, you're done. You're done as a prosecutor. And they suspended her. And that's an action that's actually been taken in a couple other states where there's been problems. And, if you don't think the Russian mafia has had a really good time beating up and abusing people in Florida and getting away with setting up prosecutors and paying them off, or that they haven't done that in Kansas City or in St. Louis, or, there's another woman suspended up in, or maybe even, she might have had charges filed against her up in Massachusetts that we covered, like, that's a real problem. And so this thing with some of these prosecutors just sitting back and not doing anything, especially when it comes to women being trafficked who are also women, like, we're not going to sit back and just watch that anymore, people. Like, this movement's been coming for a long time. And yeah, DeSantis is probably going to run for president. Sounds like he is. And yeah, there is going to be a debate coming up next week for the GOP. One of their first debates is going to be happening. Do I think they're related? No, I don't. I think there's been a long-term movement to hold prosecutors accountable for not actually prosecuting people on issues. And frankly, if we had a better governor where I used to live in Virginia, there'd be a whole bunch of lawyers getting in trouble down there for what's gone on in Arlington. So, there wouldn't just been a long string of women who were murdered and killed and people being trafficked, because that had to do with the Arlington County corruption and with people in their actual legal offices working for the state and the government, federal government in some cases, being corrupt. So, just so you know. At the end, there's been a lot of jokes made about Vivek Ramaswamy. That guy is interesting in that he likes to be so strident when he talks about to people and seems to be very big into validating them. I have no idea if he's going to be a strong contender for the GOP. I just know that nobody's really talking about Trump as a contender so much as they're talking about all of his indictments. And, there's going to be a trial next year in May, and who knows if he'll have a lot of time to actually run for the position. But anyways, so we're going to move on now to a different topic. We got through those pretty quickly. I'm trying to keep the show times down. I want to note for this show that it is at a 75 to 90% male watch audience, or identifying as male gender-wise, and then it's 25% female. And the demographics have changed. I now have 16.3% of my audience is 18 to 24 year olds. 25 to 34 year olds are now 18.4% of it, and 35 to 44 year olds is 51%. And now 55 to 64 year olds are 14.3% of it. So it's the bulk of it's still people in my age range, 35 to 44, but it's just really interesting. And then now it's extended to the US, Australia, India, Canada, and Brazil. So all those countries have gotten involved. And I want to go back now and talk about something that's it's a really interesting thing as far as my situation in case I went through the labor trafficking. So back in 2011, I was going to Gold Cup with my friends, and I was dealing with some people who were still trying to traffic me that were tied to Kendrick and the woman who was actually a man originally, but he became a woman who's now married to him out in Hollywood, and complaining because there was all this trafficking going on and saying that she had to have an event to go to or something fun, and she wanted to come to Gold Cup in the DC area. I kind of touched on the story earlier. I'm going to flesh it out more today so you understand some things. And I went to the Department of Justice and a bunch of people. I said, now they're being crazy and telling me that I have to come up with party plans for his mistress because he was married to somebody else at the time. And I have to come up with costume and clothing designs for her to wear to these events and what she's supposed to do with them. And I'm not getting paid for any of it. And that was really where I would almost say it was kind of a straw that broke the camel's back scenario, because all these women got really mad in town that worked for the government. They were like, no, that's enough. Like, you could be working for other people. You could work for other people as their designers and fashion, consultant. You could do other stuff with your life. This is just ridiculous. Like, now he's got his dumb mistress demanding party plans, and she was actually talking about wanting to crash Gold Cup and ruin it for everybody, which is something a lot of people enjoy, and they didn't want her at it. It needs to be known. The federal government and all the people working contracting there who have real lives and real problems did not want some weird mistress of some crazy Russian oligarch who runs a Hollywood agency showing up and being crazy. And so we ended up telling her I said, what do I do? I said, I was going to send her to the Kentucky Derby. They said, no, you're going to stop doing anything for them at all. I said, okay, well, I've already sent her to the Kentucky Derby to keep her away and told her that she's not welcome around here. And I put together an outfit for her, and it still looked bad. She looked weird and dirty. It didn't matter, all the tastiness of the time I put into creating clothing for her. She still looked disgusting because Kendrick's disgusting and his wives are disgusting. They're just gross people. It's Russian mafia, Russian oligarchs. They all kind of look dirty no matter what they do. That's how it is. So, and I say all this because, some of this ridiculousness started for me when I was at Luther College, and I was told that I had to take care of one woman who was Russian, another woman was Iranian, and another woman was also Russian. And the woman identified as being Albanian, but she was Russian. Albania is a Russian country. It's not really part of this whole thing of Albania being an independent country is just not true. So, but what I noted about all three of them, on top of the fact they were hugely mean and talked down to everybody else who wasn't part of the Russian mafia or Russian or Iranian, was that they're all dirty. And none of the three of them washed their clothes regularly. None of them really took showers regularly. And it seemed like no matter what they did, they just looked dirty. And especially when I lived with for 2 semesters, she was disgusting. And she didn't wash herself, even though she would go to the shower, but she wouldn't use any soap. And she refused to wash her face. I even talked to her about it. And she would come back and just partially dry herself off and glob on more makeup. And everything she had and wore was just dirty. Honey, when you see somebody that has makeup on their clothing, that's not normal. Most people wear makeup. It doesn't come off all over their clothes and it isn't on everything. That's someone who actually doesn't wash themselves. And you can actually take most makeup off with soap and water. And she refused to do that. She just went, and went right back to being gross and dirty. And this is, of course, somebody that stole a lot from me. And she'd been beat up and raped on campus and all kinds of other disgusting things in public. And I've already shown you her picture just so you know. But I want to know this about the school because they let all this go on. And it's really important to understand that there were people in their pre-med program and their nursing program that said they didn't like hand sanitizer. And they used to make fun of all of us who used hand sanitizer that were not Russian or Iranian. So the school really was just taking over Russian or Iranians. Maybe it was once a good Norwegian school. But the reality is that the Russian mafia basically took it over, and it's not a good school. And it's certainly not a school that prepared anyone to be a doctor or a nurse. Because one of the basics of being a doctor or nurse is the value of hand sanitizer. Nobody wants to go to a regular routine checkup and get sick because their practitioner or nurse or even their medical assistant is so disgusting and weird they don't want to wash their hands. Come on, people. This isn't hard. This is a really disgusting, dirty school. I can't get it across enough. And the fact that they were demanding that I take care of these people like I was a slave and really was being treated like a slave at a school where I put money forward for an education, and I was told I had to stay there, and I didn't get a choice about going somewhere else. That's a really big problem. And the fact that they tried to put enough push on the U.S. government to try to do that to me again when I went to Georgetown and some other schools to try to study nursing is a real sign of a problem. Frankly, I wouldn't care if you closed Georgetown University down either. Go ahead, close them. Stupid private schools. Way too in with Russia and Iran. Way too in with China. Because the CCP is part of the Russian mafia, so just go away. We don't care. Too dirty and gross. Too many problems. Too many viruses in the world to bother with people like that. It's disgusting. So, now we're going to move on to a somewhat serious story. This was already an issue to come up, and it does go back to the FBI's negligence. The former chief of the Capitol Police had noted that he saw several agents, what he thought were several federal agents, in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. That is correct. There was a whole bunch of them involved, and they were all turned in advance as planning to attack it, and everybody knew about it, and I don't need to talk about this anymore because I'm tired of people being dumb. There's just nowhere to go with it. Like, I mean, some of the people in Congress really got to get together. But some of the people working as federal employees that I knew that were decent. I mean, you just got to kind of man up. And I know you'll be a woman and being told to man up or, straight stiffen your spine and things, but this is just too ridiculous and stupid. There's too many Russian mafia hacks around that city. So, anyways, I'm going to end the show today on this note. Yesterday, Sam Asghari, Britney Spears' husband, has announced that he wants a divorce from her. I saw it in multiple sources yesterday. It's hit the news today. People are talking about it. Now, apparently, he wants to talk to everybody about his feelings about why he divorced her, and it's so important. I think Britney Spears needs to be divorced from Sam Asghari. I think that was another setup with some of the mafia stuff she's dealt with. Obviously, that Laura Wasserman was a terrible person who did nothing for her, and she had that horrible, conservatorship, and doesn't really look like she's out with the way she acts online, Instagram, with the sort of weird angry dancing, and it's like she's still crying a lot. I think she's still being abused. I mean, she's made some money, and a fair amount of the time I think she's probably doing okay. Like, I don't want people sort of clutching their pearls over her, but I think she would be better off to just be single. Divorce the dude, get on with her life. She doesn't have to dance on Instagram. She can go out and see the world. Drive a car. Go to a restaurant without being bothered. Like, go sit on a beach. Don't, bleh. All this other stuff is dumb. And I'm pretty sure, based on my research, that she's still under the management that she was actually trying to get out of, which is why I'm saying I don't think Britney's actually free. So she needs to move on with her life. And that means really, truly being free of this weird management system. I think she's actually under that agency that Kendrick's been running. So that's what's up. Ugh. Hold on. Okay, so I've been fighting allergies myself, and whatever else has been spread around this fine country of ours. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and sing for you now. I'm gonna sing From This Moment On by Shania Twain. Hope you're all doing really well. Maybe one of you is going to a wedding this weekend or some fabulous event. Certainly this song does not belong to just weddings, but when you listen to it, it does sound like one of these, like some music writer or producer was like, we've got to do a Shania Twain wedding song, like, must make one to be performed at weddings, get royalties, like, whatever. So here we go. From this moment, life has begun. From this moment, you are the one. Right beside you is where I belong. From this moment on, from this moment, I have been blessed. I live only for your happiness and for your love. I'd give my last breath From this moment on, I give my hand to you with all my heart. And I can't wait to live my life with you. I can't wait to start. You and I will never be apart. My dreams came true because of you. From this moment, as long as I live, I love you. I promise you this, there is nothing I wouldn't give from this moment on. Oh. You're the reason I believe in love, and you're the answer to my prayers from up above. All we need is just the two of us. My dreams came true because of you. From this moment, as long as I live, I love you. I promise you this, there is nothing I wouldn't give from this moment. I will love you as long as I live from this moment on. Yep, the goodie but oldie wedding song. So that was a thought project, just so you know, for today, and have a good one. I'll see you again.